Hello everyone, it's Luis here, and welcome to this tutorial series on Godot 4.2. Today, I'm going to show you how to improve your dialogue text boxes in a similar style to what we have seen in other games, such as Animal Crossing. Let's get into it. Let's start by having a look at our starting a scene. We have a color rect for the background, we have a sprite 2D with the Godot icon, we have a rich text label, which at this point is blank, and we have a button that just says next. If I run the current scene, we will see that the rich text label gets populated with some basic text, and every time I click next, we just move to the next item on the dialog list. However, as you can see, this is not really very Animal Crossing like if you want to think about it. And for those of you who are not familiar with Animal Crossing, what we will expect is the text to appear slowly on the screen, simulating something like if the NPC was talking to you, or if the text was being written as you press the next button. So in order to do that, let's have a look at what Godot has to offer us. If we click on our rich text label, let's just add some hello world message so we can play around with it. Ignore the typo. Now we can go to the display text section, and you will see here that we have a property called visible ratio. Let's just move this scroll here and see what happens. You can see how text disappears and appears as I move the bar. You can see that 0 shows anything, and if I set to value to 1, it will display the whole phrase. As you can start imagining, what we want to achieve is that through code, we want to move from 0 to 1 in a smooth manner. Let's have a look at what can we do there. This is our current script. It's pretty basic. The main thing that is going on here is that we have this function called move to next dialog, which is responsible to change the text in our text label. What we want to do now is to animate our text. We will be using an object called Tween. If you haven't heard about tweens before, don't worry, we will cover them in a future video. But for now, you can think of them as objects that allow us to change properties of other objects. They can do much more than that. But for now, let's keep the concept simple. Let's start to code. I'm going to paste this function here that I got prepared for this video. It's called animate dialog transition. The first thing that is happening on this function is that I'm setting the visible ratio of the dialog box to 0. If you're wondering how do I know that this property name or what the property name of the visual ratio is that if you go to your inspector, go and hover over the visible ratio property, the editor will tell you what the property name is. So that's how we got the visible underscore ratio name here. The next thing I do is that I create our tween object using the create tween function. Then I set in a variable the text transition time, and then I am calling the tween property function. Let's see which arguments we are passing to this function. The first thing to do is that we are passing the reference to the object that we want to tweak. In this case, is the dialog box. Then we pass the name of the property that we want to tweak. Then we set the final value that the tween will get us to, and then we pass the transition time. Now, let's just call our function in here and in here, and let's see what happens when we run the current scene. And voila, the first thing that we see is that we got our text animated. Now, you will see something interesting here if you pay close attention. Can you spot what it is? Well, if you're saying, or if you're thinking about that the text is moving at different speed, you are quite correct. This is caused because no matter the size of our strings, we are setting the transition time to 1. So let's have a look at how we can improve that. I have modified our dialogues array just to visualize better the current issue that we're having. So let me run the current scene. In here, you can see that our small text runs just fine, but as soon as we get to a bigger dialogue, it just runs way too fast and it doesn't feel consistent with the rest of the text. So let me do a couple of changes here. I'm going to move our text transition time to the top. Then I'm going to create a new function here called standard text size. This standard text size is just responsible to keep in memory what we want to think, or what do we think is going to be the normal text size. And what we want to do is that if we have a string which is bigger than 30, we want the transition time to scale accordingly. So let me just code that bit. You can go here. Right, let's have a look at the change that I just made here. So the first thing I did is I stored the next dialog on a variable, and then I added this new if statement here. What this if statement is doing is what I mentioned before. We are checking the next dialog length, we are comparing it against the standard text size, and if it's bigger, then we are scaling the text transition time accordingly. If we run the scene now, we will see that our first text appears just fine, and the second one, which used to be that long text that was appearing on a really fast way on our screen, now it appears on a nicer way. Now, there is something missing, isn't it? And that's emotions. Let's see what we can do to improve that. To add more animations to our text, we can use something called BBCode. BBCode is a markup language. If you have used HTML before, this will feel very familiar. In order to activate it, let's go to RichTextLabel, go to the inspector, and simply activate this property over here. And that's how you activate BBCode. Now, I have prepared some examples here that you might enjoy. As I mentioned before, BBCode is very similar to HTML, as in we have an opening tag and a closing tag. In here, I already had added some of my favorite examples. We have the shake animation, we have a rainbow, and we have wave. Let's have a quick look at how this looks. You can see the shake animation here. Now you can see here our rainbow. And finally, we can see our amazing wave. As you can see, BBCode can add some character to text to say it in a way. Just before we go, for those of you who have been following along, I just wanted to mention that I have changed the dialog item index to, rather than starting from 0, to start from -1. And I have just called the move to next dialog function on the ready function. That's just so on the first call on the scene, when we are setting up the dialog text for the first time, we also calculate our transition time for the first value. Thanks for watching until now. In the next video, we will cover how to add sound to our text to give the impression that the NPC is talking while the text appears. Remember to subscribe and set notifications on so you are the first person to know when the next video is available. Bye!